What is going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the show we teach you to make massive income, not just passive income with your real estate investing business. If this is your first time here, my name is Mike DeHaan, and I'm here with my co-host Dan Austin. Hey. And on these Wednesday Mike and Dan shows, we kind of talk about whatever we feel like regarding real estate or business news, what's going on in our business, whatever Dan has a chip on his shoulder about that week.
It's super chippy today.
Yeah. And if you don't know who we are, we own a nationwide real estate investing business. We are doing deals currently, 15 different markets across the country.
Something like that.
I've done, what would we say, 450 deals now over the last 5 years? A little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
We do a lot of deals. We're active in the space, and a lot of wholesale, a lot of flips, and we own some decent rental properties as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good time. And it's funny, as I started this up, we have the little intro song there. I realized I got to download this because we need it for our introductions at KeysCon.
KeysCon 2024, baby. Yeah, we got to plan that out. I'm going to freaking come out, just rip my shirt off. It's going to be great.
For sure.
Dude. Just
you got to keep it in wraps. We got a couple ladies coming out this time. It's not just going to be a bunch of white dudes in their 30s with facial hair like it was at the last one.
Yeah, we decided to bring in some diversity this time around, and it may kill us. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think the ladies are down. I think they'll be okay with Mike and Dan. We're not that crazy. We don't do anything that. Do we do that? I mean, maybe we do get crazy. I mean, well, we don't have Sean there to come out in his leopard print Speedo, which was awesome. So I don't think we'll have to worry about that.
Well, there's always one, right? There's always going to be one wild child of the bunch. Who's it going to be this time, do you think? My guess is Kyle.
I was actually, and here's my advantage. I get to see all their disc assessment. I was actually talking to Robbie, one of our teammates in our business, and I think I called Kyle. I was like, he's gonna be the guy. I said that same thing.
I can see it for sure. Yeah. So I'm saying that specifically as well because I know Kyle's gonna listen to this episode because he said he listens to every single one.
Yeah,
so we have high expectations for you. But yeah, our KeysCon event is our private event for our Scale community members, which Scale is for people that are looking to grow and expand their real estate businesses and really take things seriously, right? Hence the name Scale. They're trying to go from 1 or 2 deals a month to make massive income and not just limp their way along to financial freedom through buying rentals at a slow rate. And we do these, this will be our second KeysCon, and it is basically a 2.5 day intensive mastermind where we have 2 full days of workshops, group work, presentations on stuff. We're actually bringing down a speaker this time to coach specifically around sales, both hard and soft skills on sales, which I'm super excited about. And it's a great opportunity for a bunch of people to get together and network and kind of bond that see each other on Zoom every single week on the different group calls that we do. They actually get to see each other in person and hang out at a really, really sick Airbnb.
Yep.
And this one's down in Palm Springs. We did the last one in Scottsdale, and future one, who knows? Figure it out.
Yeah. Send us some ideas. We're open.
Yeah.
Right. I would say what it is not an event on is we're not bringing down speakers because of their large Instagram followings. They're going to talk about stupid stuff. And it's not one of those events where you just go to sit there and consume information, get drunk, and go home. It's one of those where it's kind of, for us, it gives us a longer format to really dig in and show people what Scale is all about and how to take them wherever they're at in their business. Because we have a few varying degrees of where you're at in your business, but everybody, the goal is to scale, like you said, beyond where they're at now. And so we get that time to really dive in and dig. And so when we talk about bringing speakers, this isn't to take pictures with your favorite, whoever you're fanboying over. This is somebody that we know that we would use that is going to dive in and really help people take their business to the next level with a new skill. And then we also get to just show them everything we're doing in our business that they can now just steal and take and put into their business.
Exactly. And the whole outcome of it is basically not only just knowledge, but extreme accountability and actually forcing people to take steps forward on the parts of their business that they're not doing. So at the event last year, we had people doing sales and follow-up calls in small groups to give each other coaching and feedback and actually be actively doing their sales and offer making. We actually had one guy that got a little mobile home park under contract at the event, which was sick.
That was
We
cool.
had people writing and posting job listings for the parts of their org chart that need to be filled out in order to be able to grow their business like they need to do, right? We had one guy who told us about all this money that he had in his account, and he was having trouble paying himself. And we made him pull $50,000 out of his business account because he wanted to buy his wife a car for Christmas. And we're like, dude, you have the money. Like, what are you just going to leave it sitting in there? Pay yourself, like reward yourself for doing this business and doing well. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
You know, and ultimately we're just trying to be the antithesis of like what you said, so many of these different meetups, masterminds that people do, where it's like you leave with like a good, warm, fuzzy feeling. And I guess a lot of theory, but not a lot of action afterwards. And, you know, cause I don't know why people always have those more theory driven sort of events. And I know why it is, because they don't actually have a lot of intrinsic value to provide themselves, right? They are relying on other people, those speakers that they're paying ridiculous amounts of money to come and speak because they're a motivational speaker, things like that, to hype people up. But we want to actually give people the tools to be successful and not just like more motivation. Because if you want that, I don't know, go watch that Shia LaBeouf video of him like yelling on YouTube saying, you know, just do it.
I love that video.
That'll get you where you need.
That's why I listen to every morning when I get out of bed, dude. You ever heard of the book Miracle Morning? I'm pretty sure it's in there. Like they send you the link to that video.
Do they actually?
No.
No.
God, no. Yeah, you got to meditate and pray in the Miracle Morning.
Yeah, I was about to say that sounds way too cool for that freaking book. But I actually have that as my alarm when it goes off in the morning. Just do it. Just do it.
I like it, dude.
So, so super excited for KeysCon. The last one was honestly one of my highlights of 2023. Yep. And I'm excited for this one to do the same thing. So
I'm very pumped.
Yeah. So if you're interested in joining Future KeysCon or hearing more about Scale, go to collectingkeys.com/scale and we'll see if we want to bring you into the group or not. Because recently I've been having people that I'm just like, no, you're just not the right fit. And that's okay. Yeah. Good luck to you. We'll see you later.
It happens.
So, it happens. But anyways, on top of that, we have had a handful of good lessons within our own business recently. We actually had a good one on the disposition side for a wholesale deal that I wanted to talk about loosely because I feel like it's such a common challenge that people face. And I don't know, do you find that you get a ton of questions from, I would say like newer wholesalers, new investors around wholesaling where they have this innate fear that they're going to get a contract signed and they're not going to be able to find a buyer? Do you find you get that much?
That's like probably the number one thing after they learn that marketing is pretty simple. And then they're like, oh my God, this person decided to sell me their house.
Yeah.
What do I do next? And they can't figure out what to do. And the building the buyers list, I think too, because, the last, few years before now, like a lot of people put emphasis on like how to build a buyers list. Right. And like, it was like a function, it was a thing. Well, it's really just, it's like this, I don't know, like growing and living being like your buyers list. They're people, right? And what do you have to do for people? You have to talk to them. You have to get out there and you have to network. And so, yeah, that piece right there is like one of the biggest challenges and fears people have is like, what do I do now?
Yeah. Well, and also too, I think that people recognize that the old adage that when you have a good deal, buyers will come is not necessarily true anymore.
No.
Right. And it was maybe in, I don't know, 6 or 7 years
22.
ago, definitely in 21, because everyone and their mom was buying properties. And then back in 2018, 19, when we first started, there were way less people on the scene and you could realistically find buyers because people have less opportunity for good deals. But now as deal finding, wholesaling has become like more of a mature industry and you have people doing it at a very high level, people have opportunities, right? You're not just competing for deals with sellers. You're also competing for the buyer's decision to buy your deal and not wait for somebody else's.
Yes.
Right. Because the average person can only buy 1 or 2 deals at a time, if they're even that serious, that they're going that aggressively. And if you bring someone, the thought process that they're having is, do I want to put my resources into this deal or should I wait for one from somebody else? Because I know that there will be more. Whereas like 6 years ago, they didn't know that. And that's why there would always be money.
Yep.
So it's a very common concern that we have. And so we got this deal locked up here in Spokane. and everyone said that we were too high on it. So we have Investor Lift, which is this huge dispo platform. We have our own private disposition list. We are sending stuff out on that. We were going to Facebook groups, and the general feedback that we're getting from a lot of people was that they essentially wanted it like the number that we contracted it at, which, to be fair, there was some, I don't know, Spokane's a funny market.
There's
there
some
was
validity to that, though. That price point, yeah.
It depending on what you're wanting to do with it, because in order to get the true ARV, you're gonna have to finish the basement. You're gonna have to do some of these renovations and other things. And people were wanting this certain level of upside on flipping a property, which in order to get it, you had to be at our price. But through just hunting and going through the different Facebook groups and find things, we found a realtor that had a client that was looking for a buy and hold deal. And they said that these were the sort of areas they liked, connected with them. And sure enough, this deal was perfect for this buyer, because they weren't saying like, I need to buy this deal where I'm going to make 50, 60 grand on a flip, because if I'm not going to buy this one, I'm going to wait for another one on my 50, 60 grand on a flip. Right. And so instead it was a buy and hold investor who wanted this exact zip code, this neighborhood, fully fits his box, got it assigned to him for a little $13,000 fee. And it'll be a great deal at the end of it, because he's getting a deal that fits his buy box for long-term buy and hold. We were able to make our money, and all those flippers that were wanting to make their margin on their larger deal, they can go and do that, because they're not feeling like they need to stretch to buy our deal that was too high for what they want to be.
Well, and in this case too, I think the note is like, it's not a retail ready property by any stretch of the means, but it's it's rentable, right? You could just rent it. Like, it doesn't need to be upgraded. It could be cleaned, painted, all that stuff. You could upgrade the kitchen, but you don't have to. Again, the basement could be finished to add square feet. But it definitely is a rental property for sure. Is that like you or many of the people we end up wholesaling to, who end up being flippers or distressed sellers for whatever reason, they might want it at a 75% ARV minus repairs, where anybody that's like looking for like a retail investment, they'd be tickled to get a house at 80% of value. Honestly, they're like, holy crap, I'm getting a 20% discount to the value of this property. That's amazing. I'll pay cash, I'll get private money, I'll get traditional funding, whatever they'll do for the lending. And there's quite a few people out there that are that kind of buyer. They're not trying to do anything tricky. They're not trying to do any fancy. They're just trying to get a bunch of base hits and doubles out there with their rental portfolio. And this fits that box. And we found that buyer. The difference is, we found that buyer, and we know how to go through our Rolodex quicker. We know how to get deeper into our buyers list, and we know when we need to really start scratching into these other areas, and also have many years of experience doing it, which helps.
Yeah. And when I think one of the big thing is, when you're looking for these sort of like buy and hold buyers, typically it needs to be for properties that are in like somewhat nicer neighborhoods, right? Like if you're doing wholesaling in the hood or like marketing some of these really bad areas, it's going to be much harder to find these people. And also too, you need to recognize that most of these individuals that are doing the slow route to wealth through real estate, right? They're working with realtors, they're going on the MLS. They're not going to be looking on like major dispo platforms, right? They're probably not on your buyer's list. Or even if they are, they're not really giving it a good look, because they rely on the expertise of this person that they put their trust in, which is their realtor, to sort of like bring them these opportunities that they think are valid. And so there's this whole other relationship-based disposition that I think people tend to forfeit, especially now as people are trying to do everything with as much speed and automation as possible. And this totally would have been a deal that, you know, I would say even in the past, we might have like looked to price reduce or maybe even drop just because we couldn't find a buyer. But like I said, just through our experience, we recognized that we knew this was a good number, and we just needed to find the right person for it. And, you know, it's like there's always ups and downs with it. Like if you're selling to these people, you usually need to explain to them that they need to have a hard money loan. They can't go get like a DSCR loan or use their local bank, whoever they've used to buy stuff in the past. There's a handful of reasons for that, but usually the speed is a big one. The condition's a big one. Also too, if you have an assignment fee, in case you guys didn't know this, a conventional or a long-term lender will typically not finance an assignment fee, so they would have to pay this out of pocket. And they just kind of need to understand that, but that can all be, you know, taught to them as needed if you have a decent buyer. So
for sure. Yeah. I would add like a question to this is, the scenario didn't work out in that favor, and you have a buyer that's like going to make you $3,000 on the assignment fee. What would you do?
So basically I have a buyer that will only make $3,000
that's willing to pay $3,000 above the PSA price. So your assignment fee basically is only $3,000. What would you do in that case? You didn't have this other buyer. you're given that situation, what would you do at that point? I think this is a good opportunity to talk about kind of like the other options as well that you would do
Sure.
in this scenario. It's not a big assignment fee. Do you just take it and walk, or what do you do?
So if someone's willing to pay $3,000, they're probably willing to pay $5,000. That's the first thing I'll say. So you can push them up that way. And then depending on the situation with the seller, I would probably try to ask for a little bit more on the seller side too, probably 3 to 5 on that side. If it's a situation where the seller's heavily distressed, they're in a bad financial position, they're already going to be walking with very little, I wouldn't do that. But this is a situation where the sellers own the property outright. They've owned it for like 20 something years. They're already going to be making like, $270,000. For me to go back and say like, hey, look, this needs a little bit more work. Would you mind giving us an extra $5,000 on it? They will probably say yes. And also too, that will make it like literally double our profit margin. So I would try to push the buyer a tiny bit, and go and ask a little more on the seller and make it worthwhile.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It's don't just lay down and accept that as your, hey, I'm going to make $3,000. Although that's awesome. High five yourself. But if you can make $3,000, you can definitely make 5, and you might be able to make 10. And so pushing back on that buyer and be like, absolutely, I would love to do this. Let's do this deal, but give me 2,000 more. And then try your hand with the seller if it makes sense and you're not doing it in a scummy way. You didn't already promise the seller something. It's just sometimes it is what it is on the renegotiation. You just got to do it. And then you can now you can turn what wasn't really much of a deal that maybe covered your costs to something that has a profit margin. And that's like the base hit you got to be doing all the time in this business to stay steady and be around so you can hit the home runs.
Yeah. And it's always about how you approach it as well, because I think a lot of people have fear around asking on either side because they're afraid the person's going to walk. Okay. Yeah. Worst case is they're going to say no. And if you approach it from a position of humility, you don't try to be a dick about it. Like, you're not like, hey, Mr. Buyer, Mr. Seller, like, these are the prices that we need to be at. And you're really kind of abrasive. Yeah, they are going to probably walk. But if you're like, hey, look, for this to make sense for my business, would you be willing to give me an extra $2,000 on the buy side? And they'll be like, yeah, that's probably fine. Most people will say that's fine just because they want the deal, right? If they say no, then that's fine. Then just take the 3 and move on. Same with on the seller side. You go like, hey, look, we really are interested. We noticed these couple of concerns. There's always concerns you can come up with on these deals. Would you be willing to give us a $5,000 price reduction? You're still going to be walking with a huge amount of money. And what it'll do is it'll allow us to be exactly where we need to be as a company, and we can keep operating. And this will go from being like something that we kind of scrape through to actually being a win, and we can move on. My guys can get paid appropriately, and we can be super stoked moving forward. And most sellers, like I said, if they're not in a bad financial position, you're not taking advantage of them, you're not being a scumbag. Like, this one is a sophisticated seller. They know the property needs work. They're making a bunch of money anyways. They'll more than likely say, yeah, that's fine. Whatever. I don't care.
Totally.
They just want to get the deal done at that point. And if they say no, then fine. Then just take it and take a smaller fee.
I'll make another note here. This seller is like that, and we are making an okay fee on it. We're not going back. Yeah. What you just said to me is missed opportunity, that you're not going back and negotiating what some other people, I should say, other people would call that as missed opportunity. But really, it's just like, if you don't need to, don't be a dirtbag and don't kind of just unjustly take away money out of their pocket.
That is a very good point. So like in this situation, we would absolutely not do that. I guarantee you 100% that we could go back and get some more money from this seller. But we're not going to do that because we're not dirtbags. We're making $13,000.
You're making a fair fee. It's not a home run. It's just a good fair fee for what we're doing. And the house does. It's a fixer upper. It's all that sort of stuff. And we're providing a service, so it's fair what we're doing. And you don't want to get into the unfair just because you can.
Exactly. So it's like wholesaling gets such a bad reputation, and it's just like everything else that is a services based business. I mean, because people talk about how wholesalers can take advantage of people, particularly because we'll know more about like the situation. We'll have an exit strategy built in. We'll know more about property values. It's really no different than like a roofer that fully knows that the cost to put the roof on is $8,000, but they go and they bill someone $30,000 because it's an old lady, right? Yep. It's no different than these fucking solar panel companies that keep knocking on my door every goddamn week and saying outrageous shit like how the dams are shutting down and we're not going to have like power anymore. Like that's literally what this little twerp said to me the other day, and I like went off at him. I should see if I could find like the camera footage. Actually, that'd be funny.
Dude, that'd be awesome. You should post that.
But like I mean, it's all about intent. Like you can
It
do
is.
all of those industries ethically by just not
Mhm.
being a piece of shit.
By
Just like
not
you can with
lying to
wholesaling
people
too.
and not taking advantage of situations. And it's like that's the key, is not taking advantage of a situation in your when you're more educated and more sophisticated in a scenario than the other people, because that's just unfair. It's unethical. And at the end of the day, karma will come back and bite you. I know it will. That's just how it
Well,
works.
absolutely. And it'll affect your longevity either
Mhm.
through you getting a bad reputation or by a bunch of people doing that. And now legislation's put into place that just screws up your whole industry. That's why
Exactly.
the real estate industry in general is just constantly under fire. So we've had so many scumbags over decades that have gone and let people live in deplorable conditions,
Yeah.
that have like wholesalers have been ripping people off or doing things like making people bring money to closing while they're still making a very large fee, doing
Mhm.
all this stuff. Like those are the things that damage the industry as a whole so that one person can go and make a quick buck. And that doesn't make any sense
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah, it's an interesting problem, not to pull the thread too much on this, but like all levels of real estate, there's been scumbaggery that's happened from the broker's side all the way down to whatever the lowest is on the totem pole ends up being. I hope it's not wholesalers. But whatever that
Yeah.
is, like there's somebody's, fuckery has been going on. And I don't know if it's because there's a low barrier to entry to get in. And I think part of it too is that there's been a system built around protecting people, which means the system is actually built in profiting other people. The people that in between A and B of the transaction, everybody in between is the one making profit. So there's a system for others to make profit in
Yeah.
the name of protections.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say at like higher levels, it's even worse, right? So we look at like the Matt Onofrio sort of
Dirtbag.
stuff, right? So if you don't know who that is, go Google his name. It's Nofrio, I think. He was a GoBundance guy along with us who got federally charged for like $75 million in mortgage fraud or something. But he was like basically doing all this stuff with these commercial properties and these wraps and these things, and it was really dicey. But the problem is where it gets real sketchy when you get up into that echelon, because you also have like the sophisticated money that's also doing illegal and sketchy shit because there's enough money there for them to care about it.
Yep, exactly.
And so like it's going to get significantly worse, and they're going to have like legal process about how they're screwing you over, right? An actual intellectual ability going through it rather than just like the random wholesaler who watched a Pace Morby video and now thinks that he's legit and is out there just smooth talking
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Oh man.
Anyways, but yeah, it's a good lesson though about making sure that you're networking, you're expanding your list, and you're exploring all opportunities on these deals. Because like I said, it's one that easily could have been dropped. I think a lot of other people would have dropped it, but we're able to hustle and get it done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then I guess to stay on the closing deals part, we have another situation that's I won't say entertaining, that is interesting, of one that we're trying to figure out the best way to move forward. So we have a seller, older guy, is in Texas. He's classic Texas man.
Oh boy.
Very rural, does not like technology. And he's basically decided that because the e-signature on the DocuSign that we sent, I should use PandaDoc, but either way, the e-signature does not look like his handwritten signature, that it's not a real signature. And he is now claiming that it is a forgery done by the spaceman or something that used that their internet. Yeah, even though it's traced back to like him and we have like the receipt and all sort of stuff. But he has said that he is not moving forward, and he has told the title and escrow company this, to the point that they're like, okay, we're not dealing with psycho here. And the funny thing is too, is he's fully down to sell to us. Like he's accepted the offer and everything else. He just refusing to let us open escrow until we see the property. But the challenge is he refuses to paper sign it until we see the property, and we can't see the property because he currently has a family member that is squatting in the deal. And so he's like trying to deal with that while also not giving us any sort of like paper commitment, but still like wants us to help him with that process.
Yeah, that's a
And
tough one.
So then it comes to the fine line of like, technically what we could do is we could help him go through this process of dealing with the squatter, and then he could just tell us to F off, right? And, list it on the market, sell to somebody else, do whatever. He refuses to sign the deal until it's sort of taken care of. And so we're kind of like at a position. We either risk it and waste some time, go by his word. As we've learned over the years, going by seller word is usually not worth much, honestly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think is the best situation we should take here to move it forward?
So this is Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So the family member that's squatting, what is his relation with them? Like, does he like them?
It's unclear based off of the texts and calls. I'm not sure if it's a brother or like a son-in-law. It's a he, but his person has some troubles. That's been made very, very clear. And we're trying to just figure out the full situation. It seems like aren't all details being shared on all sides.
Yeah, I think the way I would approach it is like understanding what his ideal outcome is. Like, what is that ideal outcome? We are educated in real estate, generally speaking, more than the average person, especially when it comes to landlord-tenant laws. And so it's like, okay, what is his ideal outcome? He wants to sell the property. That's his ideal outcome. There's a squatter in it. Our ideal outcome is we buy it without the squatter.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that conversation with him, what the ideal outcome is, and then presenting him with the opportunity to support him, I would probably spend some effort in getting him educated and understanding what his options are. I probably would not spend a monetary amount that was very large anyways, maybe $100 or something. If you had to, like, I don't know, pay somebody to post notice for him, something like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To help him move along, because you're right. In these scenarios, the risk here is you waste, which a lot of you get. I see this with newer investors. They get really wrapped up because they see the deal. They're thirsty. They want to sink their teeth into it. So they just don't realize how much every day they're wasting time on this deal, talking to the seller, doing research, trying to do this for them, trying to do that for them. And they don't have like a binding document that shows that they're going to get paid. So the risk in that is that you're wasting a ton of time and you're missing other opportunity. So I would say I would do a little bit. I would give a little bit to keep it going, but I'm not going to continue to just help this guy for nothing. And what I mean by that is that might just mean that you throw him into a warm follow-up and you call him like, hey, did you get that squatter out? Call him every couple weeks.
Yeah. I mean, and just maintaining that relationship, and more often than not, they won't actually handle it themselves. And eventually they'll come around to move forward your way, or they might sell to somebody else who's willing to deal with it.
Well, and to him, that problem might seem like a mountain. To us, it's a hill to get a squatter out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go cash for keys as a squatter unless I have a signed contract. You know what I mean? Like, there's things you can do. And part of that is the education of saying, okay, here's what we can do to help you. Because regardless, even if we have a signature that the guy that is enforceable, if the guy doesn't want to show up to closing, he's going to show up to closing. And we also aren't going to buy a house with a squatter with an unknown situation. You can't do that either. So we're kind of in a downhill on the downhill side of this argument. We don't have a lot of leverage. We had another guy in Texas. What was his situation? His was like divorce papers or something like that. And it was like, it's been like a full year. And we got him
that deal last week.
Yeah, we got it back under contract, right? And that was like a full year. And this is to the point of like, yeah, he did not move very fast, right? As child support or like some paper.
It was child support, and it took forever.
Forever. And guess what? It came back around. Our lead manager called, got him back on the phone a year later, and he's like, yeah, I'm good to go. And then we were able to get back under contract. So there are like these long-term follow-ups that do work. It's just sometimes longer than you want it to be, but in my opinion, that's a better solution than wasting like 3 hours a day for 2 weeks to find out that this dude's still not going to do what you asked him to do.
Yeah. And I think that the big lesson here is understanding that this is ultimately a service-based business. And when you provide service to people, it needs to be at a level that they want, right? And at a level that makes sense for you, because you can't bend over backwards if it's going to, like I said, being a huge opportunity cost on your time, or it's going to be something that could potentially turn into nothing, right? You also can't force them to comply to go through with these different situations. Although some people will go and talk a big game on social media about how you can like cloud title and do all these things, which you absolutely can. Understand that most of the time, if you do that, you will lose, right? And if you try to play like hardball with some of these sellers, because at the end of the day, if you think about the situation, you are coming from a position of power as an investor with money, right? And you're going to someone that you fully know you're buying their property at a discount, and you are saying, you absolutely have to sell to me or I'm going to sue you, right? doesn't matter if you're right or wrong or how capitalist your state is, right? Because you're saying, oh, well, Louisiana, we could do that, whatever. You will lose that if it comes down to like a jury of the person's peers, which is exactly what it'll be. Okay. Or like a judge that will be like looking at the seller, looking at you. You own how much property? And you were going to make how much money? This person makes that much money every single year. Yeah, no, fuck you. This person gets to keep their house.
I will highlight one fallacy in what you just said. And you started out with the whole, you're an investor with money. Some of us sometimes don't feel like we got a lot of money. We're tapping the bank.
That's true.
You know how it is every once in a while, man. You're in that trough. You're just trying to make a deal happen.
Yeah, totally. Right. I mean, we've been there. I remember being literally in this situation when we were looking at empty coffers, man, that freaking mobile home that we went out and we were digging through that heroin mobile home when the neighbor rolled up on us with his gun
drew down with his gun at us. Like, what are you doing? It's like, bro, like, do we look like meth heads?
I mean, you never know. Right. But like that situation, literally what happened was he went and signed with somebody else like 3 days before we were supposed to close. And we're like, we're going to sue this guy. And our lawyer's like, why? Yeah. It's like you're gonna lose, like, and there's not even like enough there for you to pursue. It was like a $15,000 or $20,000 fee.
Yeah, you guys are gonna look like assholes. It's not gonna work out. Oh, and by the way, you're suing over a transaction that happened with one of the biggest developers in town. Which shame on that guy.
Oh yeah,
what a dirtbag.
Everyone knows that he's a dirtbag. That was the other thing too. Is when we were talking to lawyers about how that situation played down, they were like, "Oh yeah, just say it."
Yeah, like they do that all the time.
Yeah,
they gotta have like an insider person at like one of the title companies or wherever title companies pull data, so that they have like a list of properties that they're like, we always look at when it like pings like some database, and they're like, cool, that's the one we're gonna go buy.
I'm sure they do, honestly. Yeah. I mean, like every other financial industry, which is ultimately what real estate kind of is, there's all sorts of inside baseball going on. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's how some of the richest people in the world are created is through real estate.
Absolutely.
That's why all the hedge funds are buying it more, is they're just trying to accumulate more and more wealth that way. It's the one tried and true way to do it in America.
It's a fantastic store of value.
Yeah.
That seemingly always goes up in value.
Yeah. Well, because it's, I mean, if we want to get really in the weeds, like the mortgage industry is one of the bases of the American economy.
It is.
That's why like all the Fannie Freddie stuff, that's why the big crash happened in 2008.
Yep. And a lot of construction jobs rely on it as well.
Yeah. So anyways, but point being with that, if you get these tricky sellers, understand that you can only force them so much. Do a realistic analysis about what you need to do, and make sure that if you are trying to like manipulate things a certain way, that it is a way that they are actually going to work with you, and that it actually makes sense for you to do so, because it can be very easy to get emotional when you're dealing with some of these irrational people. But if you like get too worked up about it, you're just going to have bad time. And that's a great way to get burned out of this business.
Don't get sucked into their shit show. Don't make their problem your problem.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So cool. All right. Anything else, Dan?
That's it. Let's get out of here.
All right. Cool. Well, thanks guys for listening, and you should share this with all of your friends. It's a great way to continue helping us grow the show. Also, too, if you guys didn't know this, but downloading the show helps our rankings a ton. So homework for everybody, go and like download as many episodes as you can possibly fit on your phone. Just go download.
They're all amazing.
Yeah, just download them. You can delete them afterwards. I don't even care. Just like go and download like all 300 episodes that we have, and all of a sudden we will be the #1 real estate show in the country. Because spoiler alert, this is not a spoiler, a lot of people that have these real estate shows that are like ranked super high, they're full of shit, and they go and they hire a bunch of Filipinos that just go and download all their shows.
They're liars. We've seen it firsthand.
We've seen it firsthand.
Many
times. It's just like when you see someone on Instagram and they have like 20,000 followers, and for some reason all of their reels have like 300 views. Yeah, they're all fake. Most people that have high ranking podcasts are exactly the same as that as well. Just so
liars.
So anyways, so go download all of them. Then we can also be liars because you guys downloaded all of our shows, but at least I'll be able to have a vanity metric for 24 hours. So right on. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
See y'all.